So I think we have time for one more of my questions, and then we'll see if we have time for a couple questions, maybe. Depending on if they give me the nod or not. Oh, good. Okay. So this is from your student short. Is that right? Okay. And one last thing I wanted to ask you about. We had been talking earlier about sort of. In some ways, I think of animation as like the big show. You get to control, sort of, and play with sound, light, movement. It feels very like all-powerful in a way. You get to have a lot of control. But in many ways, comics, you were saying, and I agree with, are even more powerful. And one thing you mentioned was just that in animation, unfortunately, that time is literal. And then in comics, you can play a lot more with time. And can you talk a little bit about that?
Oh, I mean, I think there's something that I love about animation as a control freak. I love the huge amount of control you get over everything, music and sound, color, motion, and everything playing out frame by frame in real time. You have control over everything, and I always loved that. I always was so excited about that. But I think that the thing about comics is that there's something interactive that happens when you don't have a lot of those elements. And I've been thinking about it a lot because I've been writing poetry also. Thinking about, I love the power of ambiguity. I think that there's something that's really frustrating about ambiguity because you're supposed to want everything, you're supposed to want to have everything, know what everything means. But when you don't quite know what something means, there's something that happens between two people that are experiencing that thing, which is that it becomes this place where you have to meet part way, and it can mean something different to that person than it means to you, and it's actually supposed to. With animation, I mean, I still try to do that in the stories that I write, but visually, that doesn't happen because very, very literally, you're looking at everything that's going on. With a comic page, how you're like experiencing the flow of time is based on the composition of that page. How interesting you're able to make something. If you make a panel that's so great looking that you have to stop and stare at it for like 20 seconds, you've just manipulated time, you know? And if somebody doesn't care to do that, they've just lost the point of what you were trying to do. And that's, you know, but if they do, then, I mean, your experience of it is going to be slightly different.
Like subjective reality.
Yeah, but I think I also like the challenge of really trying to convey, like, you know, or just using, like, when you hit the end of a page, you know, are you trying to make someone rush to the next page? Are you trying to make them stop? I mean, you can do that with composition. You can throw a tiny little figure into a huge panel and make it feel like loneliness. I mean, I can make things feel like loneliness in the show because people will be like, oh, I'm so lonely, or just or, you know, and you can hear it in their voice. You can hear it in the music. But in a comic page, you could show someone fall into obscurity at the bottom of a page in a borderless panel where they have entered a realm on that page where nothing actually exists, and you will feel the nothingness of the world, and because of the way that it's drawn. I can't do that in animation. It's not, compositionally, it's very different.
And selfishly, I was just wondering, for the book that we're doing together, do you have any idea where it's going to go? I'm not asking for the audience, this is the editor check.
Well, I'm keeping it really, the thing that's so strange is that the show, and I was talking to you about this too, like the show feels so much like personal work to me, that not working on the show and sitting down to draw something feels less personal than sitting down on the weekends to draw poses for the characters on the show. I mean, the characters on the show are like so important to me, and it took a lot of time for me to sort of build them, and also they have to do with my relationship with everyone who's working on the show, and that's my life. I mean, that's my whole life. So I've sort of been, I mean, I've been writing poetry, which I would like to share. It's very ambiguous. I mean, not right now, but I'll publish it.
Do slam poetry right now.
I have it on my phone. You know, it's weird because I actually have I have notes for the show on my, here, wait, all right, I'm actually going to pull this out. I wasn't planning to do this, but like I have notes for the show, and I'll forget what are poems and what are notes I made for changes to do on the show because I made them so fast. Yeah, like this is just it says, look, even if she's not going to the, and there's nothing else. like these half-finished thoughts, and I'll be like, oh, is that? I can't remember if that's a poem or that's something I forgot to finish writing. Let's see. At Today's Island, I think that was actually it was a corrected spelling. Yeah. Oh, here's one. This one just says clarity on stoplight, running. Big, not exactly a citizen. Cut, we need music. These were notes. But I'm like, was that? No, those were notes. Yeah.
That might be a shopping list.
This is
sure.
No. This one's a poem. This one's a poem. This is It's called 9:10. Cream curtain, cat noise. Elysian Park birds have the morning news. I'm glad the world is going on, but I'm not interested. That's a poem and not notes. Stuff like that. Sort of, I think I've been using it to sort of ground myself in moments of time because I'll forget to sort of exist while I'm working on the show. And that I've been drawing dancers, but I don't really draw them like this anymore because I've gotten so used to going simpler. And I've been so inspired. Like I was just working on something with, I was working on the answer. There's a children's book of The Answer that I've been working on. And I'm working on it with Ellie McChalka, my former art director, and Tiffany Ford, my former colorist, and they're brilliant. And they just these amazing figurative drawings that were so simple and powerful. And I just look at this stuff. I'm like, it's so busy. I want to do something that is like so simple. I think I've gotten so interested in that. And it's funny because when you draw something really complicated, I think it tends to look very impressive. When you draw something really simple, not so much. But I think it's so much harder to draw something simple. It requires decisiveness. You have to know what's important and what's not. And so I think, when you look at something and you're like, oh yeah, I know exactly what that is, and it is that thing. It's like perspective. If you draw something with perfect perspective, nobody will care or notice because it just looks like that would look. Yeah, but if you skew it, everyone's like, oh my god, the perspective is amazing. But it's not. Actually, it's wrong. You're noticing it because it's wrong. If you're noticing perspective and you're thinking, wow, it's so impressive, there's a good chance that it's just wrong, which is not bad. I think actually it was fun when I figured that out because I was like, I'm just going to start making stuff wrong on purpose when I want it to feel impressive.
Yeah. I studied letterpress, and like the way you're supposed to, the old way that letterpress worked, is that you wouldn't see the impression on the paper if you had done a good job. But now, like, to charge $7 for a greeting card that you made, they want to see the letterpress. And so, like, the hardcore letterpress, like, gurus, that is not the right way to print, but people think that that's what letterpress should be. So they're impressed by doing it wrong.
Yeah. It's dissonance. I love this, actually. I mean, like, that's the thing. I think what it is so exciting to me, which is that there's sort of consonance and dissonance. If you do everything correctly, what you will make is quite boring, because there will be nothing wrong with it. You could make something that is just the lightest, happiest, most perfect piece of music with nothing out of place in it, and it'll feel good, and then it'll be gone, and you won't remember it, because there will be nothing that stuck out. But being able to control what is wrong on purpose to create dissonance, so that you will notice, someone will notice what they should notice, because that is something I've gotten really, really interested in as a control freak. It's really exciting to me to know how to do it, because I think, especially when you're learning to draw, I think early on the idea is like, everything should be right. I did this thing wrong, but it should be right. Or then people will come in and say, no, but it's cool that this was wrong. And there'll be like a lot of debate, like, is it, oh, look at that torso, it's so messed up. And then I'll be like, well, I think it looks good. And then like fighting over that, like, oh, but it's sort of incorrect. But then it's like, when you get to the point where you can do everything right, so you can start to do things wrong deliberately so that they have impact, that's when it becomes like skill, and not mistakes.